All right, Ian, we've got an emergency broadcast we had to get out because tonight we got the first semifinal of the first ever college football 12 team playoff. We've got Penn State versus Notre Dame. We had to get our thoughts out there, and it's going to be a super exciting game. I think the playoffs have been super exciting, to be honest with you. I've liked it.
I think they've been a success. I mean, I think there's some things that we need to tweak and maybe
Yeah,
fix a
not
bit,
perfect.
fix a bit heading into following years of this playoff system. But I
Yeah.
think, I mean, a success as a whole. I think we got some really good games out of it. We've seen teams that have elevated their game that we didn't expect them to do. Like seeing Notre
Mhm.
Dame. At least I didn't
No,
think.
I didn't think they would
I
be
thought
here.
Notre Dame was heading into Georgia, and it was going to be a
Yeah.
bad game like we had seen in the previous
I
years.
thought
Where
Indiana was going to give them a better game, to be honest with you. It wasn't like I thought for sure Indiana was going to win or anything, but I thought Indiana would give them a better game. And then the way they handled Indiana and then beat Georgia, granted, without their quarterback, right? But still, I mean, Notre Dame impressive. I think they're playing hard for their coach. They don't make mistakes. They're just disciplined. I like Notre Dame.
Yeah, and they're a team that I would have downplayed in this year's
Mhm.
playoffs. Probably wouldn't have made the four-team playoffs this year if we were still in that format. And now we're
Right.
seeing them as a team that could be making their way into the finals if they're able to beat Penn State, which I think is a realistic possibility at this point. With the fact that they beat Georgia, they beat Indiana, two teams that I thought of really highly heading into the playoffs. And I think Penn State is still one of the best teams and playing some of their best football as of late. But that's the same case with Notre Dame. These are the two teams, at least on this side, they're both playing just really good playoff football, and that's been impressive to watch. I think it's an interesting
Not that.
situation where,
Oh,
like you said, I think the team has bought into the coaches a little bit more on the Notre Dame side. I like the system that Notre Dame runs a little bit more, but I definitely lean towards the talent on Penn State side. I like the players on Penn State. I'm Drew Aller. I think he has a lot of potential to put up a really good game. I personally think he's better than Riley Leonard. I think that's a pretty easy statement right there that he's better than Riley Leonard. And I like the Penn State defense. I mean, they got guys that are just freak athletes. I mean, everybody knows about Penn State's strength and conditioning program, and they produce freakazoids. And that's what you see out there on the defensive side with Abdul Carter on the edge, playing linebacker, doing a lot of different things, playing that kind of Micah Parsons role we saw with Penn State quite a few years ago. And so I like the talent on Penn State. I like the coaching on Notre Dame. It's an interesting thing because we always talk about coaching and quarterback are the two main contributors to winning. And I like the quarterback on one side, but I like the coach on the other. So it's an interest. Let's hear your opinion on
yeah,
where you're.
I think some of that it correlates more with the NFL game because of the rules and restrictions on defenses in the NFL. Defense still matters at the college game, and Penn State's linebacker right? I mean, they produce linebackers and they play tough run defense. And so you got to say, okay, that's a good formula for playing Notre Dame. But here's the challenge, and this is not an indictment at all on Penn State, but they've beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, right? Can they beat a team they're not supposed to beat? Like Notre Dame's the favorite coming into this game tonight, and Penn State has, I don't know for how many years, it feels like the entirety of Franklin's tenure there at Penn State, they win all the games they're supposed to win. Great job. That's really good. Like, that's a good program that wins all the games they're supposed to win. They just tend to lose all the games they're supposed to lose. They never go, oh wow, Penn State just won that game. Like the Georgia Notre Dame game. Like, you go, oh wow, Notre Dame just won that game. Like now I go, okay, Notre Dame's for real. I want to see that out of Penn State. I want to see that out of Drew Aller. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've never seen that out of a Franklin based team here at Penn State.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the two losses on the year for Penn State come from the two teams that were ranked higher than them in Ohio State, who beat them by 7, and Oregon, who beat them by, I think it was 7 points, as 8 points, I think, in that
And no
game.
shame in those. Those are arguably two best teams in the country.
Yeah, and so to play super close games there is super impressive by Penn State. But then you look at the one team that played them really, really close. That was kind of a shock. Was actually a team that was a super run heavy, beat you up kind of squad, kind of similar to what Notre Dame brings to there, and that's Minnesota. Which
Yeah.
Minnesota plays a really sound game. They're not going to turn the ball over. They're not going to fumble. They got a good defense behind them. And it reminds me a lot of what Notre Dame brings to the table, controlling the clock, making sure that they don't put themselves in disadvantage situations. And so I like the game plan that Notre Dame's going to bring into there to play a really close game with Penn State. Can Penn State's otherworldly athletes kind of take over? That's kind of where my question lies. But I think I lean towards Penn State just because I really like that coaching program, that coaching staff that they got there. And I think they're going to bring a game plan that's going to be tough for Penn State to be able to handle.
So you're going Notre Dame. You said Penn State, but you're going Notre Dame with your pick, right?
I think I'm going to go Notre Dame with my pick. It's a tough situation. I think this is the more even matchup. I have a lot more opinion on who's going to win the Texas OSU matchup, which I
Yeah.
think everyone can kind of guess where that's going to go because there's one team that's been dominating the college football playoffs so far this year. But I think this one is going to be probably the must game watch of these semifinals.
I think so. I think this is a great game. I think if it was in Penn State, if it was in, State College, I think for sure, man, I'm going Penn State because that crowd, that environment, that lifts that team. It's in Miami, right? I mean, there doesn't seem to be probably any advantage. I think both these teams are going to probably travel well, going to be well represented inside the stadium. So, I mean, the logical pick is Notre Dame. I'm just gonna go because you went Notre Dame. I'm going Penn State. I don't feel great about that pick, but I'm gonna go Penn State, and I'll just eat the loss if I get it here. But I think it's gonna be a really cool. I think it's gonna be a close game. I
Yeah,
really
I,
do.
I mean, I think Drew Aller's stepping up each and every game, and I think that's good. You're not in a bad place as Penn State. I like Drew Aller a lot as a quarterback, especially now that he's added a little bit of that on third down. I'm just going to take off with it and go and get myself a first down. And you see, he always talks about how his favorite quarterback is Josh Allen, and you see those glimpses of little bits of quarterback Josh Allen type play from him. And so, you look for that in that game in the big moments. I'm going to be looking out for Drew Aller getting his legs involved in that game, and we'll see how it all falls.
Here's what I think Penn State keys for Penn State to win this game is they've got to run the football. Against Boise, that was the big problem is they were dominant in the run game and they kept getting away from it. You know what? Drew Aller, he might be that NFL prospect. He might be that guy that's improving. Lean on the run. Get those quick, short passes off to your brilliant tight end. Love that tight end, just a hard-working, all grit kind of guy. But quit throwing the ball so much. Hand that ball off to your studs out there in the backfield and get them rolling. I don't care. You can pitch it to them. You can short pass it to them, but get it into those running backs' hands. I think they're the most talented guys on your offense and let them do their work. That's the key to Penn State. If they try to get real pass happy, I like Notre Dame in this game because I don't think Notre Dame's going to make mistakes. They're just going to do the right thing at the right time. And so Penn State, like you said, has to be better athletically to win this game because Notre Dame, I just think they'll play a clean game. They're going to play hard for their coach. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. Let's move on to this other semifinal that I think is super exciting. Probably the two most talented teams in the country. I mean, they just got stacked rosters. I mean, but I lean Ohio State as far as the most stacked roster when it comes in that, maybe other than quarterback, but even in quarterback lately, he has been outplaying, anybody in the country, really. I mean, Howard has started playing good football the last 3 games, and I think they've just taken the shackles off them. They've quit trying to be what they're not. Like the opposite of what I said to Penn State. I'm going to say to Ohio State, throw the football, man. That's what you're good at. You got like 5 NFL wide receivers. You've got maybe the most talented wide receiver ever as a freshman out there at Jeremiah Smith. Throw the football, man, and let the chips fall where they may.
All right. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case with this team. It's just the battle of the best right there when it comes to the rosters. And yeah, like you said, Jeremiah Smith may be the best player in college football right now. He is so dynamic. He is so hard to guard at that. He's a giant guy that gets those long strides going, and he's impossible to guard on the deep ball. He's a contested catch master. It's going to be tough for any Texas DB to be able to limit him. So you're going to have to bracket him with double coverage and then handle the single coverages on Abuka, on then still keeping guys in the box to be able to stop the running attack that Chip Kelly has been able to revitalize this running attack, which we haven't really seen from Ryan Day in his tenure. And that's being able to get it downfield with Hendrickson as well as Judkins. And so those two guys, that 1-2 punch is really tough to stop. And but I think the Longhorns have the formula to beat Ohio State, because what Ohio State has done is they beat you up with the pass with these big plays, but where they get their first downs, where they make their money, is with that running back duo. And when they were stopped by Michigan, it was due to dominant D tackle and defensive line play.
And Texas is so good interior there. They're so good.
Exactly. And so there's where I think, and then you also have to put into play that Ohio State's played some really, really tough games. I mean, even if it's not like they've blown them out of the water and hasn't been tough in the game, they've been practicing. They've been mentally just so dialed in for the past 2 weeks. Is there going to be a little bit of mental fatigue in this team, getting to the point where, man, we've played this team, now we got to go up against Texas, which is another really good team? Is the mental fatigue necessarily there, where Texas, they haven't necessarily had the same mental fatigue, it feels like, in this game, even though they've played tough matchups, and they've played closer games than the other two. Texas probably came into those games thinking we're the favorites, like we're going to win this game. Not necessarily that same sigh of relief once you get into the game and you start beating them up. They were like, okay, we expect to win this game going up against Clemson and against Arizona State. And so does that mental fatigue start to wear down on Ohio State? And do we see them start to maybe go back a little bit to what we saw against Michigan, where the run game got shut off, and then they tried to force it down down there and just could ever get it done, and so then they never got to those explosive pass plays.
Yeah, I think we've seen the best marriage of Chip Kelly and Ryan Day in the last 3 games. Can they keep that going? I don't know. They've done it for 3 games, right? So we'll see if they can continue to do that. But, early in the season, it wasn't. It was messy. It was not a perfect blend of those two systems, right? Because Ryan Day at his core is a pass guy, and Chip Kelly at his core is a run guy. Everyone goes, oh, they'll just mesh together. That is not an easy mesh when you've got two guys that come at offensive scheme, and very successful offensive schemes, from the total polar opposite of each other. And when, like you said, when Ohio State tried to be that grinded out run team against Michigan, that just didn't work for them. They tried to be too Michigan-like, and you know what? If Texas, I haven't heard anything that they've done this, but if they were smart, do like Michigan does, challenge their manhood. Oh yeah, can you run it against us? Can you do it? Because they fell into it, right? They went out there, oh yeah, we'll run it against you guys. And it's like, okay, thank you. Play right into our hands, because in the pass game, they're almost, unstoppable. But there's a lot of talent on that Longhorn side of the ball as well, man. They've got talent running all over the field. And when yours is on, man, he's on. He looked like he was moving better to me against Arizona State. And so I really liked what I saw in his mobility because most of this year after the injury, he's just looked like a pocket passer, and that's really limited on like who he was as a quarterback. He's not a true dual threat guy, but he was athletic enough to keep the plays going and to be able to move a little bit and then get that pass down the field. Right now, I'm hoping that's the yours we're going to see because otherwise you're going to get back to where the Texas fans were clamoring for Archie Manning. They can't wait to get that guy out on the field. And I think if we see trouble early on, we may get a Manning sighting in this game. But I think that probably leads to an Ohio State victory if that's the case. So you know what? If you see Manning, I think it's almost a sure sign that we're probably going to have an Ohio State Buckeye victory in this one. So you're going to have to keep your eye out for that super talented guy. That's maybe the most talented quarterback in all these semifinals is in the second string place there at Texas. But here we go. Who do you got in Ohio State, Texas?
Well, I'm gonna go with Texas. I
Oh,
think they
wow.
got. I just like Texas's roster. I think they
Lucky
got the
boys.
right guys to go out there and compete with them. Like I said, the mental fatigue going out there, and I'm rooting for my guy Lance St. Louis, the long snapper
Oh yeah, that's our guy. Yeah, absolutely.
for a long snapper. Grew up as childhood buddy with him, and so I'm rooting for him to be able to go get a win against that Ohio State. I'm here. We're both from Michigan, and so we never want to see an Ohio State national champion. And so there's no way I can pick Ohio State, and so I'm going with Texas on the win right there, and it should be a fun game no matter what. Just need to be able to stop that pass attack for Ohio State.
All my friends in Ohio are going to love this. I'm going to go with Ohio State for the victory here. You know what? 8 years in Columbus. I'm just going to go ahead and pick these guys. They're the most talented roster in college football. They peaked. I think the two teams that have peaked the most at this point in the season is Notre Dame and Ohio State. They're peaking right now. That doesn't mean, I mean, Texas and Penn State both have talent-filled rosters. So, I mean, they're in the semifinals. Not like they're having bad seasons here, right? So, but I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Ohio State for the victory. And this video looks a little different than normally you see out of this Ruggles Roundup Elevated Mission broadcast because hey, Zach Rates left us in the wilderness, and so we did it on our own because we had to get this video out and to the public. They were clamoring for this information, and so we were left to our own devices. Middle of this broadcast, Ian, your mother walked into the studio here, and so I don't know what kind of noises have happened. I'm not monitoring the studio very well, but we got the video out. So, anyways, great talking to you, and great to get back on the saddle again here. Ruggles Roundup, Elevated Mission. Excited to get this out.